Thank you. You know, jokes sometimes say more profound things about living than the pronouncements of the wisest philosophers. There's one old joke in particular that I've always thought has a lot to tell us about human relationships. It's about a man in the suburbs who started his car one morning to go to work and discovered that he had a flat tire. He looked in the trunk of his car and found one of his children had borrowed his jack. Well, he had to get to work, and the only person he knew who had a jack was his next-door neighbor, Harry. "I'll go get Harry's jack," he said to himself, and he started over to Harry's house. On the way, he got to thinking, "Last week I borrowed Harry's hose, and I haven't returned it yet. Maybe Harry's mad about that." Then he thought, "The week before I borrowed Harry's lawnmower, and it's still sitting in my garage. Harry probably doesn't like that very much. By golly," he said to himself, "Harry is a pretty unreasonable person. I borrow his hose, and I borrow his lawnmower, and just because I don't get them right back to him, he's mad at me." Well, by this time, he was ringing Harry's front doorbell. Harry opened it smiling and said, "Sam, what can I do for you?" And Sam said, "Harry, I know what you think of me, and just for that, I'm not going to borrow your jack." And he stomped away. Well, that story says a lot about human nature. Let me tell you what that story can mean to you in just a minute. That story about Sam and Harry is much more than comment on a flat tire and a borrowed jack. It tells some important things about the way a lot of us react to our neighbors and the people we work and live with. I'll bet there isn't one of my listeners who isn't harder on himself than the people around him. We'd all like to think of ourselves as perfect, and when we make little mistakes, we feel the rest of the world knows it and respects us less for it. As a matter of fact, most people carry on their backs a load of guilt that is completely unnecessary. Fear of what other people think of us can be one of the greatest barriers to success in life. And a distinguished physician has said that the commonest and subtlest of all human diseases is fear. But the cure is not a liquid in a bottle, nor is it compounded in a pellet. It has to be counteracted by positive thought, by a deep conviction that life is good and that people around you are basically helpful and want to help you out. And that can only come with mental practice, mental exercise. Lose your fear of what people think of you, and you will find your every relationship will change for the better.